Alrighty there. So anyways, I have a somewhat interesting game. I was just sort of watching some replays for fun. And we've got, I am Jinwei Prime. And then we've got Liquid Huck, or Huck, the Protoss player. As I have no way to verify that these are the real people, but I pretty much assume they are considering the playstyle that was going on. Very little doubt, especially the early scout. That's pretty much a signature of Huck, is that he loves to scout right after that pylon. Now, before you guys knock me, I just do want to say I'm going to be going through this game and I'm going to be saying that they made mistakes. And I don't want you guys to be like, oh, they're pro-level players, you don't know what you're talking about. Maybe I don't. Maybe they did things on purpose and to me they just look like a mistake. But I'm going to be going through and I'm going to, from my point of view, saying what, sort of pointing out some of the things that I think could have gone differently, what went well, what didn't. Where I think you might have been able to make differences. You know, someone else might look at this and just say that other people might look at it a different way. But anyways, the first thing I want to say that's pretty darn awesome is you can see here, I didn't have the production tab up right away, I didn't want to spoil the secret, but we've got a 6 pool coming from Jinwei Prime. So that is already pretty epic. Now, remember, when you 6 pool, you actually make your 7th drone. You don't have to, but in this case, he made his 7th drone, and then he used that 7th drone to make his 6 pool. And then of course, you're allowed to make 2 more drones. Once your spawning pool's on the way, you can make 2 more drones, and that will leave you with enough minerals to get an Overlord and 3 Zerglings. So that is sort of the ideal 6 pool situation. And anyways, one thing that was really, really cool here, I just got to back this up a tiny bit, I sort of missed that, is they're trying to play some mind games here that don't really work out. So basically what happens is he says, I don't want it to be a 6 pool, so he sets his drone to patrol here until he sees the incoming scout. And then he says, oh, look at me, I'm building a hatchery. And Huck's like, no, I'm not falling for that. And so he sees the 6 pool, so that's pretty epic that he sees 6 pool. His response, just wall in. Complete wall in. 6 pool, useless now. Just got to get 1 attacking cannon behind there, or 1 unit. He already had his forge coming down early, so it really doesn't matter. You know, like he can just throw down a cannon right away. He's not going to have to wait to spawn in a zealot or spawn in anything. So this forge will take a lot of damage. I'm thinking that Jinwei might have been able to kill it. He didn't want to stay there and fight that cannon, but you know, there's a pretty good chance that he probably could have just stayed there, especially with his reinforcing Zerglings. He probably could have killed it and then gotten into the base. And if he had, that would have been huge because there was no probe standing nearby to rebuild if anything was to fall. Anyways, Huck's got the advantage now, I'll say. So basically, Huck saw 6 pool, he countered it. That means that our Zerg player here did a very uneconomic build. It's you know, the least economic build you can, because you know, 6 pool, you want to try and win right off that initial attack. So you know, he's just going to go into heavy Zerg macro mode because that's really the only way he can now survive. So he's throwing down his 2nd hatch. Of course, he got his queen out, and he's just going to be droning up like crazy if you watch here. Now basically what Huck has the game given to him. It was like, oh, you 6 pooled me, but I didn't have to change anything in my build order other than throw down a cannon and, oh, wall off with a gateway instead of just not walling off and leaving space. So pretty much, as far as I see it, Huck has this game in the bag. You know, it's like he could just win because the Zerg player is going to be at a huge economic disadvantage. But we will see something really weird going on is the Zerg player actually maintains map control and Huck doesn't really go in and finish off the game. And, you know, the way I look at this is, you know, you just know you stopped a 6 pool, you're ahead, but you got to keep that advantage. You really got to apply the pressure. You got to make sure that the Zerg player doesn't macro up, doesn't drone up. That's going to be the most important part. And of course, Huck here destroying his own forge so that he can get out of his base. Thankfully for him, our Zerg player here doesn't realize it's destroyed, or else when the zealots are chasing, oh, they're not speedlings. That's why he didn't do a run by. But if they were speedlings, he could have just sort of ran around the zealots and run back in the base and caused a ton of damage. Since Huck isn't using these zealots as a wall right there. Of course, going for the expand, Zerg player scouted, that's very good. As you can see, what have we been seeing on the production tab? Queen, overseers, and a crap load of drones. And of course, some spine crawlers. The reason why he's throwing these spine crawlers down is because he's not building attacking units. He's not, you know, he's sort of like, oh, I'm on the back foot. I've just been 6 pooled. I'm probably going to be attacked and killed, you know, and he's just droning up really hardcore. So, you know, that's what he's doing there. Going a little overboard, but of course he doesn't know that Huck isn't going to end up attacking him. Of course, Huck getting out a lot of early sentries, I think that's almost a signature thing for him. There's a few Protoss players that sort of signature. It is relatively common. Of course, getting some hallucinates for some good scouting, that's always quite important. As we can see, he comes through here, he sees this, and, you know, sees that there's a ton of spine crawlers. Sadly for him, he doesn't see this hidden spire tech because it wasn't quite going down when he scouted. Very good for Jinwei Prime to hide it there. I really love the way that he used his... Oh, Huck sent through another scout, and I think he missed it again. Oh no, he found it this time. So hopefully, you know, he did see it with his scout. It's just a matter of, was he actually watching to pay attention? Well, we can figure out by going back to Huck Cam. And 11 minutes and 10 seconds, and it's set to first player mode. Okay, let's see what happens when his scout goes through. So, he's not paying attention, he has not seen the spire, and he's still not looking for it. So, that's gotta suck. He actually does get caught off guard by these mutas, so I assume that he never even scouted the spire. The fact that he scouted it and then just didn't look at it, very disappointing in a way. You know, it sort of sucks. But anyways, going back to the everyone cam, speaking about this again, very, very smart. Notice how he was pooping creep so he could hide it somewhere else. I really like doing players who can do that. It's a great way to hide stuff. And of course, now we've got some mutas coming out. But if we look at the income tab, we've got 66 over 57 harvesters. If we were to even jump back a couple minutes, it would have been like 50 to 30 something. So really, what happened here is Huck just stayed in his base. He wasn't aggressive. He didn't push out against the Zerg player. He let the Zerg player macro up, and suddenly the Zerg player is way ahead of him. Technically, Huck's still ahead because, you know, these bases have only been running for a little while. A lot of these workers are still transferring, you know, and so really he's just on 2 mining bases. This one sort of just got started, you know, and it's against 2 mining, so Zerg player only has 1 extra base, really not at an advantage yet, but we're going to see him really get up there, some cutesy force fields just to kill off some Zerglings. But as you can see, Huck was not prepared for these mutas at all. They came in, they did a decent amount of damage, but since he was making probes anyways, he really didn't lose that many. But yeah, you know, definitely lost some probes, always sucks. Bit of a battle going on there. And of course these mutas come in here and they do get a snipe, but thankfully for Huck, he wasn't researching anything at the moment. We'll just go back there. As you can see, oh, maybe he was. Yeah, he was working on Blink, and I think he gets sniped before Blink gets finished, which is too bad because those Blink Stalkers are sort of works well against the mutas. Does he get it cancelled in time is the question. Ooh, I don't think he was able to cancel that, so lost a few minerals as well. You know, that always sucks. It's not the end game. And of course, here you get some good mutas. He gets 2 or 3 mutas for pretty much free, which is always good. You don't want to let mutas get too high in numbers because they're very hard to deal with. Of course, Blink Stalkers sort of will null and void large numbers as long as your army's in place. But as you can see, sort of setting up a bunch of cannons. But the problem is, when you have this many 14 mutas coming into your base, 3 cannons just can't do anything. You know, you really would need like 7 cannons or bring in your whole army of stalkers. So anyways, Blink is on the way, and Huck is now going for Psy Storm rather than going Colossi Heavy. It's interesting though because his opponent actually doesn't get Corruptors, so I'm not sure if Huck sort of says he has a Spire, he can get Corruptors. I'm not going to go Colossi, or if he just really like Colossi right now. One thing that goes sort of nice for him is, I think that was about 8 or 10 Zerglings just running by in a single stream. These cannons just tear them apart, killing them one at a time. And as we can see, sort of, it's just a mutilating army. That's all it is right now. But if you've been paying attention to the production tab, you can see our Zerg player hasn't been idle. He's been teching up a lot. So Huck now grabbing a 3rd base, trying to get it saturated. That's always good. But he really hasn't been doing much at containing the Zerg or scouting. He doesn't even know about 2 of these mining bases. These mutas are really keeping him on the back foot. He's really having a lot of trouble with them, for sure. Lands off some decents. I think those ones were okay. Yeah, I forget the hotkey for health bars. Is it just H? Yeah, it is. He lands off some decent storms, considering how much harder it is to hit flying units, because you have to, you know, see, I see it right here on my screen. If I storm right there, it'll land in this area, but yet the observer's actually, you know the whole thing. It's underneath that dot. So you got to storm slightly in front of it, or slightly below it. And of course, getting some free kills on these Zerglings, and then he's going to go on his base. I'm not going to pay too much attention. I'm just going to say the Zerg player says, I don't really need that base. So he comes and makes a counterattack with these mutas, which does do a lot of damage. And of course, there's not a lot of mining left here, so it's not a big deal. Of course, getting a couple of decent, and then he has enough cannons left to scare them off. But still getting a few free kills, getting some minerals. Was it worth it? Well, he probably couldn't have saved this base anyways, so in that sense it was probably worth it just to say, you know what, that base is going to die. I don't have enough mutas to deal with that army. I don't have an army to deal with that army, so I'm just going to let you. And of course he rebuilds right away, and Huck sort of forgets to sort of scout that, or I don't know what you want to say, but basically he doesn't go back in there and finish it off. Of course his army's here killing those backlocks. The mutas and Zerglings coming to kill this expansion since they saw it was scouted. Of course, Huck cancels that quickly and says, fine, I'll take one of your expansions. And of course, he decides not to attack in here, mainly because of the spine crawlers. You might have seen those ultras, it's hard to say. I wasn't really on his cam, so I can't tell you if he saw them or not. Anyways, as you can see here, he's going the one Colossi and then high temps. A very big high temp army, and then almost all blink stalkers with zealots, because there are very nice storms there. Kills off a lot of those. That was a very, very nice play. He's got those zealots because there's been a lot of Zerglings on the field. And of course these ultras coming in. Who would have thought Psystorm against ultras? But these blink stalkers just demolished them. Those zealots in the front were cannon fodder, and those, oh man, that's gotta hurt. Those just got absolutely slaughtered. But as you can see, our Zerg player really isn't that affected. He's got a ton of static defense. He can re-macro his army like no other, because he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 8 hatcheries. So, you know, I just sort of want to stop here for a minute and just, you know, I mentioned he had like 8 hatcheries. So that's sort of like, that's why you don't want to let a Zerg player macro, and you don't want to sort of sit back. And as a Zerg player, that's why you want to macro. Because if we look at the income here, obviously Zerg player has more income. That's the first important factor. But then if we look at the army tab, you'll notice he's lost tons of units compared to Huck, just in the sheer number, and yet he's always staying ahead. If we go back and look at units lost, look at that. He's lost an extra 8,000 units. So, you know, if he hadn't been so aggressive and grabbed, you know, this base, so on, you know, it might have been quite a different game. Huck really, you know, the way I looked at it is Huck probably should have won this game, but he just sort of sat back and he let the Zerg player macro, which was a really bad idea. As you can see, let's just take a quick look at the upgrade tabs into our pause. We got 1 shields, 2 attack, so Huck's been doing some. But our Zerg player here, 2 and 2, okay, he's not much higher yet. So they're pretty much equal in upgrades right now. As for tech choices, of course, we've got our Templars. We've got these Colossi, which really aren't coming out anyways. I hate people who say a lot, and yet here I'm doing it. And of course, Huck's trying to get up a second mining expansion, considering that these 2 are mined out now. And of course, a lot of workers at the moment, but of course this one's not done, so it's not a big deal yet, even though he should be transferring those soon. High-level players usually will catch stuff like this. Of course, going in for a big fight here does a lot of damage, but then again, a lot of that was just static defense, and yeah, he's not really killing off anything too crucial to the Zerg player, which is too bad. And of course, look at how quickly this army grows again. Like, Zerglings are pretty weak, but they still do a lot of damage, and then some ultras back it up. I love how he uses the high ground here, abuses that, blinks up there. That was awesome. Oh, Cross, I must have still had vision or something. He blinked up there. I was going to say, how do you have vision? He doesn't have an observer in his army. Anyways, as you can see, now he's scouting here again, which is good. Checking, making sure, and saying, oh, he's reestablished himself there. Nidus Swarm pooping out to sort of defend the colony, I guess. And Overlord drops. So really, this game, you know, I was trying to find some games that would help me sort of figure out Protoss strategies, what Protoss players are doing, so on. And in this game, it's more like what Zerg players can do to be epically awesome when they're allowed to just control 80% of the map. So we've got, you know, you don't see this often, an Overlord carrying an Ultralisk, and then not even Banelings, just Zerglings. So our Zerg player is being very, very, he's playing very well other than that failed 6 pool. Now that he's been allowed to macro up, he's doing a bunch of interesting stuff. He's going to be doing a drop. A little bit of tech damage, not much damage though. Dropping in the main probably wasn't the best idea. As you can see, limited amount of damage. He took out some cannons and a pylon. So, you know, he caused some damage, but really didn't take out a Cyber Core, didn't take out the High Templar, anything like that. And as we can see, I'm going to pause it here just to make sure I'm not missing too much. Basically, Huck had a small army here that was going to go up here, but then this came in, some nice storms scaring that off, and then he brings in some reinforcements, so very good. Sort of, now he can't kill off this base like he wanted right yet, because he's afraid to get attacked. Considering he only has 2 mining bases, he has to guard them pretty well. And of course, a couple of mortals, ballsy, walking through there, trying not to get killed. And now he's sort of regrouping his army, pushing out to center because he sees that they're not there. And he does have the army advantage, so he's trying to pursue, but he doesn't want to go too close to the Zerg base in case there's something else waiting. And, you know, he doesn't want to lose his whole army, because if we look, see, units lost, you know, Huck's doing awesome in that respect. But if we look at, oops, not income, resources. If we look at the supply cap, our Zerg player is having no problem with the supply. And look at this massive, massive, massive drop. We have Zerglings. Oh, an empty one. We have another empty one. Hey, Zerglings, Zerglings, Ultra, Ultra, and some Zerglings. Okay, so a couple Ultras, a whole bunch of Zerglings. Huck having to defend this base. He's actually sending all of his Zealots and High Temps pretty much up here. This is doing a lot of damage when you start taking out those tech buildings. I don't know if he has another Templar Archive. I'm going to stop watching that battle because this one's a little more interesting. He sort of gets owned by those roaches, but uses a couple storms to keep them off. And basically he ends up finishing this one off, mainly with his Templars, and of course those Zealots, of course, help. But if we now look at what Huck has for production buildings, okay, he can still make Colossi. He's got his gateways. And that's it. He can't make Templars anymore. Which, you know, is really going to set him back because he was banking on those Templars. You know, he can go Colossi now if he really wants to. Which wouldn't be a bad choice considering how little air there is. But look at this. Our Zerg player being unrelenting, coming in for another airdrop, sending this wave of Overlords back. It's too bad that Huck didn't kill off these Overlords. Not that it really would have put our Zerg player into supply, probably. But as you can see, our Zerg player very happy. Oh, he lost this base again. Not a big deal. He's almost maxed out again, doing a drop and an attack. So always doing these multi-pronged attacks. That's really what you want to do as a Zerg player. Multi-pronged attacks will do a lot. I don't know if any of you guys watched Day 9, but I just finished watching his Fun Day Monday with the Nidus Canal Networks, and oh my god, that was, some of those were pretty epic, and the people who were doing Niduses like everywhere, the poor Protoss player just couldn't do anything. So as you can see, this Protoss army trying to stick together, especially when Huck's this low on supply, and our Zerg player, I have to say, well played then. He has won this game, didn't even need Raptors because Huck didn't go for those Colossi. And really, he just out-macroed, to no end, he out-macroed Huck. And it's, you know, it's too bad for Huck that he let that happen, considering that, you know, he really had that advantage early on by catching and foiling that 6 pool. But he just sort of stood back in his base and let the Zerg player, you know, attack him and keep him contained rather than keeping the Zerg player from macroing up. What you'll notice a lot of players will do is they might only send out like 3 or 4 attacking units, and they'll sort of attack and they'll poke in some very nice storms here. They'll sort of attack, poke in, and they won't really do any real damage. And the only reason why they would come in and sort of poke and then retreat is basically they want to force the Zerg player to make a pile of Zerglings. They don't even plan on staying around until those Zerglings are done. They just say, okay, if I'm attacking with a couple of units, that player's going to make Zerglings just in case, you know, I stay and I don't back off. So, you know, that's really important. So whether you're playing against Zerg, you know, there's couple things sort of see, like, about, you don't want to let the macro up, or if you're playing Zerg, you can see why you really want to macro up. So there we go, that's one game. I just thought it was really interesting in terms of, when I started watching this replay, it's like, oh, this should be easy. Huck should win this in like 10 minutes. He foiled a 6-pool, and he didn't, so I just sort of, thought I'd cast that. And for anyone who does like Zerg, which I don't, as you can tell by how much I play it and cast it. But anyways, for anyone who does like Zerg, this is probably a video that, you probably wish I'd focused a little more on the Zerg army and stuff, but really I didn't need to. He just went macro heavy. He built tons of everything, did some drops, didn't really use the Nidus network that efficiently for drops. That's okay though, he used Overlord drops, and there you go.